Well, it's time for me to do my every 6 month rant, evaluation, whatever you want to call it, of the Orange Menace. That's the guy who's running against Biden for president of the United States. And, I just got to be truthful. I don't like this guy. I've never liked this guy. Even when I really didn't know a lot about him, I read The Art of the Deal. And it made no sense whatsoever way back years ago. So that was a mess. Really, the only thing that anyone upstate New York knew about the guy is that he built a lot of things down in the New York City area. He had a building with his name on it with gold on it. No one else did that in New York City. So there was that. But we didn't know anything else about him, really. And let me just say this. I live in New York State, live in Central New York area. He's obviously from New York City. He's lived here his entire life, except for that time he was down in Washington, D.C. I've been here almost 50 years. And when he ran against Hillary Clinton, and he barely won that one, and I think, personally, that was kind of a voter fraud thing, but, we'll let that go for now. And even though he won the election, he lost the popular vote by over 3 million votes. And in New York State, which was his home state, he lost 58% to 28% to Hillary Clinton. What does that tell you? People in New York State, people in New York City knew what he was like. The rest of you should have listened to it, but you didn't. So that's how that goes. With that preamble, I'm going to mention 12 things. The first two are pretty close to each other, but still I'm going to mention these different things that I just can't believe the supporters, and y'all know who you are, don't think this is a bad thing. So here's the first thing. Just recently, over this past weekend, he was at some rally in one of these states, and on the first day, or that first evening, he was saying that if he didn't win the election in November, there was going to be a bloodbath. Now, people who support him say, well, we're not saying that he advocated that. See, they're saying we're not saying he advocated that, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. He certainly hasn't come back and said, I'm not advocating there to be a bloodbath. So he's not doing that. He didn't even try to apologize for it, because the next day he basically said, well, if I get to be president again, we're going to kill people who cross the border. We're going to kill a lot of them. We're going to send a lot of them to other places. Some of them we're going to put in jail. We may even make some of them slaves. He said this. I'm not making this up. Y'all go find it. That is just unconscionable. I know that politics has changed. It's gotten a little meaner. Okay, it's gotten a lot meaner over the last, my goodness. I guess we'll go back to 2008. So politics has gotten a lot meaner in some ways. But if you're talking about bloodbaths and killing people, no, I can't believe you would support that. So let's look at the next part. He hates strong women, other than Ivanka. He loves her, but he hated his first two wives. Right now, everyone's asking, hey, what happened to Melania? We ain't seen Melania anywhere. I don't know. To me, this is tabloid stuff where they, a lot of things are out there saying, she doesn't want to be near him. She doesn't want him close to her son or whatever. To me, that's tabloid stuff. What I do know, however, is that she's not with him. She's not supporting him like she did when he ran for office in 2016. Truthfully, I don't remember seeing her much in 2020. So, I don't know. But you got to question that. Look at the stuff, or, look what he said about Haley. Look what he said about a lot of other women, politicians across, even those in his own party. Listen to some of the stuff he said about them. Heck, he went after Megyn Kelly, who has flip-flopped, and I'm almost embarrassed to say that she went to Syracuse University, and I don't like that, but, it gave her a journalism degree. Anyway, the stuff that he says about her, and the stuff he says about other strong women, I don't know. I don't know how women are ready to support that. And I got more stuff coming down later on. We'll come back to that. Next on the list, he hates the military. He says he didn't say that when they were at one of the cemeteries, he said, look at this bunch of losers out here, you know, for people who were in the military who got killed. He says he didn't say it, but you know who says he said it? All the generals, all of the Navy, but they're not called generals in the Navy, whatever, but all the armed forces, they all heard him say it. They've told everybody that he said it. He didn't want to have some kind of celebration about, you know, the military or, you know, armed forces or whatever, because he didn't want any disabled soldiers there, because he said that it would look terrible with him. I mean, really, my dad was shot in 2 different wars. My dad was shot in the Korean War. He was shot in the Vietnam War. He was in the service for 26 years. This guy found a way to get himself out of the military by saying he had a hurt foot. I mean, really, come on. My dad took 2 bullets for this country. This guy couldn't even go to, you know, boot camp just to see if he could do anything. No, he was no kind of athlete. And from what I understand, he's not only a bad golfer, but he cheats so that he can win. That's a hearsay thing. So I'm not saying that it's true or not. I'm just saying that's what you hear all the time. Next, he supports fascism and communism. Look at the people who he has been building up, saying these are the people he likes. He likes Putin, Russia. He likes Kim Jong-un from North Korea. He supports the Chinese guy. He supports all the other fascists across the world who have been elected to leadership positions. You don't hear him saying anything about, you know, the good leaders in other countries. Nothing. He basically has said that he would love to be a dictator for a short period of time. He said one day, but with all the stuff that he's been saying lately, I think he really wants to be dictator. And if he can do anything with the military leaders, he might have a chance to do it if he gets elected. I know that as a military kid who moved around a lot, you know, with my dad, I know, or at least I've always felt that the military will only go so far, because even though they report to the leader in chief, or the, you know, whatever, that they would always end up doing the right thing when needed. But then the military didn't step in on January 6th, 2021. Even though they wanted to, they didn't. So I'm not so sure. But that's my thought. Here's next. He's been showing mental decline. Everyone has been saying Biden is too old to run. He's too old. He's going to be decrepit, all this other kind of stuff. You know, Biden is still sharp. Yes, he's older, but he's only 2.5 years older than the Orange Menace. And he has not been slurring his words. There's all kinds of videos where he's been at all these different rallies, and all of a sudden he starts slurring his words. He can't get a word finished. He basically has said that he ran against Obama, which he didn't. You know, he's just mixing all different kinds of things up. And, you know, the thing that he did when he was at what they called the Black Convention, which turned out there was only 20% of black people who were there. They moved the chairs around, and I saw this. So, you know, you can find it on YouTube somewhere. They moved the chairs around so that they could focus on where the few black people who were there to show that there were some black people there. But, you know, he's the one who's showing mental decline. He's the guy who is staying up late nights. I mean, 11, 12 at night, writing all this stuff on Truth Social for 4 or 5 hours. Some of the most demented stuff I've seen. I mean, I stopped looking at it as much as possible. You know, obviously I'm not on stupid Truth Social. Ugh, I'm not on X either, but still. I don't see any of that stuff unless someone mentions it on a YouTube video or in a news article that I come across. Because I don't go tracking the guy on intentionally. It's just that I can't get away from it. Next, you don't hear about this all the time, but he's getting fewer and fewer people going to his rallies. He has some big ones, and on those, you hear a lot of people and it sounds really good, but he's had a lot of his rallies across the country where usually within 10 or 15 minutes, people start walking out. And they hide that. At least they try to hide it because, it's all in the newspapers. It's been online. It's been on, news, on TV. So, it's there. Even people who are still saying that they're going to vote for him and they would vote for him regardless of anything he does and whatever, they're walking out on him. That's questionable. You're never really sure what people are thinking when they say, well, I'm going to stick with him in that moment, and then what it's going to be like after the fact. And then we have this one. Now, I hate giving him credit for this. He wants the credit, but he doesn't want the credit. He's the guy who forced pharmaceutical companies to create the COVID vaccine. That was his big baby at the time. And it was because of that I almost wouldn't take the shot because I knew he had forced these vaccine companies to do it. I ended up taking it because my mother was, sick. She was living with me. Mom had dementia. I wanted to make sure I wasn't going to hurt her in any way. So I went ahead and got the shot. Now I've had 5 shots. Now, the other day when Biden was doing his State of the Union and he happened to mention something about healthcare, the Orange Menace got on his Truth Social and he said, Nate, I'm the guy who created it. I did it. And then his supporters went nuts and wild and he dropped it as soon as he could. But he wanted credit for something that he's been trying to run away from for the last 3 years. And he did it. So if y'all are really that upset that there's a vaccine out there, you know who did it. Don't try to hide from it. He created it. As a matter of fact, remember in September of 2020, in September of 2020, he got COVID. And he was in the hospital, I think, for 4 days, and they were giving him all kind of injections, all the good stuff. And, he wanted to live. He knew better. That he's telling a lot of other people, don't take the shot. It's bad, whatever. Take the bleach or whatever some of those other things are. Take that stuff instead. He doesn't care about your life. He doesn't care about you at all. So there's that. And next on the list, I mentioned already that he said he wanted to be a dictator. What he didn't mention, or he actually said this, but a lot of people have given this up. He's got a hit list. He's got a hit list of people he wants to go after almost immediately. And if he wins the election, the first day he's in, he wants to go after a whole bunch of people. He wants to get the Justice Department on them. He wants to get the military on a whole bunch of people. Think about that for a minute. He's going to send the military into different states across the country to arrest people because they didn't support him. That's not how he's wording it, but that's exactly what he's saying. That's not a thing you can do. I mean, that's not a thing you should do. The military is not supposed to attack its own people. You have the National Guard, that's what they're for. But you do not send the Army or the Navy or the Marines or anyone else who's in the service against American citizens. That's not what it's for. And if he does that, all of y'all who are supporting him, you think you're safe from it. If they come into your city, your state, those folks don't know who you are. And you can say anything you want to. You can put on a shirt. You can put on the hat. But they may think you're just trying to save your life. And they may come in there and take care of you. Think about that for a moment. He's also talked about pardoning everybody who has been convicted or pled guilty for the insurrection on January 6th, 2021. He's talking about pardoning all those people. And let's face the fact here. Some of those people, the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, white supremacist groups, Those folks had guns there. The January 6th committee, which was made up of, well, it were 2 Republicans who were on the, the panel. Everyone else was a Democrat, but everybody who testified happened to be a Republican. So think about that for a minute. They said, well, this is just this Democratic thing they're doing, but it was all Republicans who testified. So, what are you going to do? Some of those people worked directly with him, by the way. Bill Barr, who was his attorney general, testified against him. I don't know, folks. I just don't get it. He's already been convicted of sexual assault, defamation, and fraud here in New York State. He just put up some kind of bond for the E. Jean Carroll thing of $93 million. However, it turns out he hasn't actually paid for anything yet. So by the end of this week, he has to come up with some amount of money. And I'm not exactly sure how much it is, but if he doesn't come up with a certain amount of money, Letitia James is going to start taking some of his properties. So, homeboy, the billionaire, the multi-billionaire who's been telling people how rich he is, he ain't got the money. And right now, he's up to somewhere around $473 million that he has to come up with for the fraud case. And he still has to pay this money on the E. Jean Carroll thing. Y'all, that's pretty bad. And then here's the last stuff. He's still up for indictments for federal election interference. That's tied into the insurrection. The Georgia state election interference. I think that's it's down to 36. I think it was more than that, but now it's down to 34, 36 things that he and others have been indicted for. Falsifying business records. That's the hush money thing with Stormy Daniels and, oh my God, Michael Cohen, who is now turned against him and is going to testify whenever they do that. And then to hiding and holding on to classified documents that they have him recorded, sound recording on him telling some people who have never been allowed to see anything like that before, that he was showing them something that he shouldn't be showing them, but he's showing it to them. And he forgot to give himself permission to take it. He says that. They've got him right there. He said it. Anyone who is trying to say he had the right to have it, y'all have not heard this tape, or you heard it and you just don't want to listen to it. And he's dragging a whole bunch of people down. And, a lot of people who worked for him while he was president, there's tons of those people who are saying they are not supporting him this time. Mike Pence, who was his vice president, who he tried to get killed on January 6th, said he's not voting for him. Bill Barr's not voting for him. Mitt Romney's not voting for him. It's a whole bunch of people who are saying they're not voting for him. They don't want him around anymore. You start to find out how dangerous someone like that is. He appealed to a lot of people. You know who else did? Hitler, Putin. I don't know if Kim Jong-un or his father actually appealed to anybody. They just found a way to get there. The Chinese, I'm not really sure that they ever actually had anyone who appealed to them. I just think that once the Chinese figured out, hey, you know what, we're a pretty strong country and we got a whole bunch of people, I think they just found their way after they got Japan out of their country. There's enough here. I mean, there's tons more that I could probably have come up with, but I don't want this to go on forever. My ideal was to keep this under 20 minutes. I think I'm close to that. I don't know. Try. Anyone who wants to debate me and wants to try to tell me what it is you like about this guy, why you think he's innocent of all this stuff he has been charged with. how you can say that, well, people are just picking on him, or whatever term you want to. What does this deep state thing mean, by the way? That's the stupidest term I've ever heard. There's no such thing. I don't understand that at all. But what you're trying to say is that people in multiple states across the country are all ganging up on him. You know, if you got that kind of hate going against you everywhere in the state, I don't know. But it's just this kind of thing. I just had to have my say. It's been a weird weekend. Last week was a weird week. The week after Biden gave his State of the Union speech, we need to get back to some type of normalcy. We need to at least get back to a place where if we're going to have Democrats and we're going to have Republicans and they're going to be in the House and they're going to be in the Senate, they need to at least talk to each other. They need to pass something. And it all starts with him. And for any of you who still believe that it's Biden's fault that no border deal has been passed, it's because he told the folks in the House, the Republicans in the House, to vote against it. Ask Chip Roy, who is a Republican House member from Texas, what he thought about that. That video is also on YouTube. I'm just saying, you start alienating your own party that much and everyone else is still supporting, I don't know. Let's see what happens. Anyway, that's all I've got. I'm tired. I hope y'all have a good day. Let's see if we have a discussion, or let's see if some of y'all are ready to just ignore it. Y'all take care.